everyone, welcome. Feel free to turn your video on. We do ask that you just place yourself on mute once we get started. So we'll just give everybody a second or two to join. But you are welcome to have your video on. It's always great to see faces in the audience. So we're super excited to have you here tonight. We're going to be going through Evergreen Analytics Strategy Frameworks, which if you've ever built an analytics strategy, you want to do it once and keep it fresh forever. So it's going to be an exciting presentation, and we have an amazing speaker tonight. So really looking forward to getting started here.
No.
All right, so it looks like we have just about everybody in here, so we'll go ahead and get started. So again, welcome. My name is Sadie St. Lawrence. I'm with Women in Data, and our mission is to increase diversity in data careers. We do this through a couple different pillars and programs, through awareness, education, and advancement. And we're really looking just to diversify the analytics industry just in terms of data science, machine learning, artificial intelligence, data engineering, you name it. The data careers have proliferated over the years, and we want to make sure that it's all inclusive and diverse, and people feel like they can be their best selves in this career. And so we have a couple of different programs that we offer, but one of the main things we have is the heart and soul of our community. So we have about a community of over 13,000 people. We're in 42 different chapters. We've had over 100 plus events. Things have changed quite a bit since COVID, where we all meet virtually. But if you're interested, and you can definitely sign up to become a member at our website at womenindata.org. But without further ado, someone who also has been an advocate in the data industry and really helps professionals become their best selves is Lillian Pierson. And so I'm so excited to welcome Lillian Pierson tonight. She has written 4 different books, which is incredible. She's trained 1 million workers on the topics of AI and data science. And she's supported organizations from the United Nations, National Geographic, just a really incredible. I thought she was going to be 100 years old with all the work that she has done, because she's lived multiple lives in what she's been able to accomplish in a really short time. And is just an amazing person to talk to. Like, I was so excited when I got to meet her, because she's just a super genuine person, and you can tell from all of her work that she just wants to see people become their best self and become successful in their data career. And so she is the CEO of Data Mania, which offers a ton of resources and education in terms of becoming a data professional, and particularly a data strategist. And so we're so lucky and fortunate to have her tonight, because I know she's going to deliver an awesome presentation, and you're also going to just come out with a ton of really great tips. So without further ado, I will welcome you, Lillian.
Hey everyone, thank you so much. I'm excited to finally get to present for you. And yeah, I really think it's very, very cool what you guys are doing with women in data, most definitely. Because there was no women in data, and this is like the closest thing we had when I started in the data field was Women in Engineers, and SWE, Society of Women Engineers, because I have an engineering background. So this is really, really cool to see all of these people that love data and being female as well. Thank you for having me on, Sadie. Okay, so I guess I just take it from here. Sorry, guys. One of the things you're going to hear about in a minute is I am based in Thailand for 7 years now. So it's I just kind of woke up about a half hour ago, and I was dreaming about some epic thing. So I'm a little like disjointed, but we're gonna do this, and hopefully it's gonna be awesome for you guys. And please stick around to the end. We're gonna do Q&A, and we'll just get started. So let me just share my screen with you, and then, okay, this is what I have prepared for you. Is everyone good? Thumbs up if you can see it. All right, cool. All right, so we are talking about Evergreen Analytics Strategy Frameworks. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cover the main aspects of what is what is an Evergreen Analytics Strategy Framework, which besides just a mouthful, and how it's helpful to you, how you can go about creating your own framework, and then I'm going to share with you my framework that I have developed over the last 10 or so years. So that is the topic for today's discussion that I prepared for you. Let me just bring everything over. All right. But yeah, so you're going to get all the ingredients that go into creating an Evergreen Analytics Strategy Framework so you can start developing your own framework. But I'm also going to give you my framework that you can use starting today, which should hopefully be helpful. But what we're going to do first is I'm actually going to just introduce myself, and I'm going to give you the long form version of my brand story, because Sadie asked for that. And I guess because we're women in tech, we have a little bit, or women in data, we have a bit of a different path than the typical data worker. Mine definitely has been atypical. Okay, so whether you're new to the data field or you're like me and you've been at it for over a decade, one of the big things that's important with your data work is that you're able to ensure that the work you're doing as a data professional is actually making a positive impact on the business's bottom line. So, you know, there's like an 80% failure rate according to, it's dropped to 80 from 85% failure rate of data projects according to Gartner, which means that those either projects aren't seeing the light of day, or they're only costing money for the business and not making money. So as data professionals, I don't really see anyone that's better equipped to solve that problem. And so Evergreen strategies, data strategy is one very critical component to solving that problem. And so I just wanted to create this talk and show you how to bridge the gap between implementation and actually being able to connect the pieces to business ROI. I'm Lillian Pierson, and to date, I've educated over 1 million data professionals on AI. I've also been delivering strategic plans since 2008, starting with US Navy. And our mission in my business is to help data professionals to transform to world-class data leaders and entrepreneurs. So that's the short form version of my story. So that would be my elevator pitch. However, I'm actually going to share with you the long form version upon Sadie's request. So while people are still coming in, I just wanted to start by telling you, you know, how I got to where I am in my data career right now, which I've been an entrepreneur since 2012, but I've been full-time in my business since 2013. But back in 2011, I was in a real no-win situation where I had an engineering degree and 3 years of experience, but I had been laid off from my job, which was mostly due, I tell myself that it was mostly due to the economic conditions, the fallout of the housing bubble collapse, in 2008, because we had municipal funding. I'm an environmental engineer by training, And I always had just found jobs. So I didn't know anything about like how to actually go about finding a job. And I just put in CVs. And I was working as a legal secretary for $8 an hour at that time. And I realized back in 2011 that I had sent in 600 CVs and never got one job. So the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. So I decided, that I needed to try something different. And honestly, I felt very disillusioned with my career path and what was going on because I had just basically jumped every hurdle. But then, if I'm really honest with myself, at that time, I did not really want another job. I wanted to start my own business, and I wanted the freedom to travel the world and to work on only the things that interested me. And I didn't want to have to basically be someone else's doing what everyone, what my boss tells me to do and all that stuff. So back in 2011, I decided I was actually down in Bolivia at the time, but this picture's from Peru back then. And I decided, I'm going to start an online business. At that exact same time, simultaneously, I was reading a book, Guerrilla Marketing for Job Hunters. And I implemented the instructions and got a job like at that same time frame. And so I ended up going back to the United States to take that job. And one of the big factors in going back to the United States for that job was I wanted to earn my professional engineering license. I was 7 out of 8 years into qualifying for the licensing exam. And so I couldn't just give up on that investment. And so I landed a job doing GIS and what essentially came down to analytics, project building, dashboard buildings, and then spatial data science with Python, stuff like that. This work enabled me to qualify for my licensing exam. And then I started my side business in 2012. So even though I took a job, I already decided back that winter, there's no way I'm doing this for the rest of my life. So it just so happened that this is when big data became very big. I tried out a travel business and a data blogging at the same time. And the data stuff just took off with no marketing, and the travel stuff is just so saturated. So, I decided to make the core focus of my side hustle data. And that was actually perfect because that's what I was doing for a job too. So building the business could kind of dovetail perfectly with what I was doing in my day job. So that worked very well. And so I worked really hard, probably mostly at least 12 hours a day, up to 16 hours a day. I was working, just building, day job, prepare for engineering exam, and then build a side business. And I did that for a few years. I guess it was 18 months where I was full throttle on that. And then 2013, I was able to quit that day job and I moved to Thailand. And at first I just had very low profit forming work. So I wrote a book. I got a book deal on a plane from Bangkok to Bali. I opened my email inbox and there was a book deal in there. So I wrote my first book and I just did some small service jobs, but and it was fine because I got to travel the world and I was free. So that was really what I wanted to do. And but then in 2015, I got pregnant. And I remember the morning, I was in northern Thailand in a city called Chiang Mai. And I just realized that either I'm going to have to take a job or I'm going to have to turn my business into something that really generates profits because I need to now take care of another person, right? and provide her a very good upbringing like I feel I had. So that's when I started taking my business seriously and treating it like a business. And so I don't want to go too much into my business brand story, but I started landing like 5K per day jobs and stuff like that. It was almost, I wonder if like it was an intention shift or something, because after I decided, hey, I'm not going to freaking work for less than I deserve, I started getting some pretty, right away, I started getting some pretty sweet jobs. So I got a contact from LinkedIn Learning and created Python 4 data science courses, and then started doing some, like I did some work for Intel, which was like $5,000 a day, but I had to go to New York and also all over the world. I would go give training. So I would have to go to Dubai, I would have to go to Istanbul, I would have to go to all of these different places, Sweden. I mean, it was crazy. And I had a baby who was like, I started traveling for work when she's 2 months old. So, but I did it, I wanted to make money to like be a good parent. And I did that for a while, but then it got really exhausting and I really was just not enjoying traveling. All coincidentally, when you have a kid, it's not as fun to travel the world. So I transformed my business to a online business and started working on bringing all my programs online instead of delivering them face to face. And I increased my service prices. So my services are now $1,000 per hour. And most of the work that I do is envisioning products for my customers, and then in sales, marketing, managing my team, this sort of thing. So I do very little service work and I just work on creating amazing products. And throughout the course of this, we have served 10% of Fortune 100 companies. And also my mentorship clients that have signed up for business coaching, they have 10% of them have landed 6-figure contracts within the first 7 months of signing up with me, which is, I'm very excited about that for them. Okay, so that was the long form version of my brand story. I'm still here in Thailand. That picture's in Russia, in Moscow. Yeah, so I'm still here in Thailand. We live on an island called Koh Samui, and I'm just running my business from here. Now, on to the topic for today. We are talking about Evergreen Analytics Strategy Framework and what you need to understand in order to build your own. Also, how they're actually beneficial, why you would want to invest your time and attention in doing that, and then we'll go into further detail. I'll provide you my framework. So in terms of Evergreen data strategy, so I'm going to break it down to what is an Evergreen data strategy and then what is an analytics framework, and then I'm going to tie it all together. So an evergreen data strategy, or really, to be honest, an evergreen strategy of any sort, is a strategy that's going to be continually effective despite changes in market conditions. So when I say effective, I mean effective in creating new or improved profits. We're talking money, right? So it's all about money for the business. And profits for your company's investments that they're making into data resources, technologies, and skill sets. So what we have to, as a data strategist or a data leader, the big thing is understanding that that investment, it's a costly investment most organizations are making into the infrastructure and the skill sets and the software, everything they need to have any sort of data insights going on. And so we need to protect that investment and make sure that the work we're doing is providing them a return despite changes in market conditions. So I actually, for data strategies, I recommend, because data, the field is rapidly is evolving so rapidly, I suggest actually refreshing your strategic plan every 18 months. Okay, so why you need an evergreen data strategy is essentially because the speed of innovation is changing so fast. So if you do not have a plan in place for adjusting to that change, you will very easily build a system that it becomes obsolete in just a few years, and then the company will have lost most of its investment into the data initiative. So honestly, that's one of the harder things for big companies, as you probably know, is, you know, they're not so nimble. They're not able to adapt. And then I have clients, you know, if it takes like 3 to 5 years to do a data migration, you know, who knows if the technology they're moving to in 3 to 5 years will even be what it is today. And it's just like the ability to, you know, create, especially from an entrepreneurial perspective, or if you're a product manager, to iterate on a minimum viable product and to get things out the door is imperative with how the market is changing so fast. So having an evergreen data strategy allows you to create a strategy that's where it stays nimble enough to keep up with the speed of innovation, and the data strategy is adaptable to fast changing market conditions, and then the strategy is up to date, timely, and relevant with respect to how it's leveraging data resources, technologies, and skill sets to generate new and improved revenues. And I keep saying that, and I'm going to continue to keep saying that, because as data professionals, I'm an engineer, as you know, and I remember when I was in the systems design course, my teacher said, don't get so caught up looking at the bark on the bark of the trees that you forget to see your way out of the forest. So if you are an implementation person, this translates really, really, really well, I believe, because it's so easy to get fixated on the small details that we need to put in place in order to make something happen, that we lose total sight of the big picture. And also, a lot of companies don't have data project managers, product owners, a person in place to kind of steer the ship. So it's really good for us as data professionals, even if you're doing implementation roles, to basically have your eye on the prize, which is really, in the business terms, it's money, right? How are we saving the company money, protecting the company, or generating new profits? Now we could go, I could go on all day about data strategy, but we'll keep going. I'll just keep on this topic. But I wanted to stop for a second and just hear from you guys. Have any of you on the call worked on any form of evergreen strategy, data or otherwise? I'm going to pull up the chat and see. No, yes. So Marilyn says yes. I would love to hear, what kind of evergreen strategy did you work on, Marilyn? Lynn says yes. I would, if the answer is yes, I would love to hear, because there's a few of you that are saying yes. I would love to hear what kind of strategy, what was the application area and stuff. Well, okay, so it's mostly no's, but a few yeses. I would love to hear more about okay, so Marilyn says they were creating an ERM program from the oil patch here in Alberta for a construction firm. Yeah, that makes sense. So I got my strategic planning. I got my start with strategic planning as a project engineer, because we needed to create technical plan, all sorts of technical plans, master plans, strategic plans for our government clients. So that is actually where construction, anything with built systems, they generally have a strategic plan in place because it's a big investment, right? So, all right, interesting. Okay, cool. All right, so let me just keep kind of going through here. Now we're going to talk about analytics framework. An analytics framework is essentially, okay, so sorry, one more person said, Dana said, kind of, she developed a data pipeline for government and academic data and data storage for an environmental public health network visualization. Okay, so Dana, that sounds, unless you developed a strategic plan around that, unless you built a strategic plan around that development work, it sounds a little bit more like implementation work than strategy. But there was hopefully there was a strategy that you were working to, a strategy in place that was kind of setting the groundwork for the implementation work you were doing. Especially for anything government, then yeah, it would, they usually always have some sort of overarching theme, strategic plan if they have consultants on hand. Okay, so an analytics framework is an overarching reusable process you can leverage to ensure that your company's data initiatives are squarely focused on reaching your company's business goals. And what analytics frameworks really do is they help create a direct focus so that you can not only for yourself, but also something that a framework that you can use as talking points and use as a structure for talking about your projects, your data initiatives with your team, if you happen to be in a management position. Yeah, and it's just a framework for making sure that you're keeping, your company's data eyes on the prize, which are new and improved profits for the business. And actually my framework, I'm even integrating it into my next update of Data Science for Dummies, because anything that's strategic, the STAR framework works for that. So I'm going to actually give you my framework in a minute. But in terms of why you need a analytics framework, you put it in place to protect the business ROI of your data projects. So what happens when you don't have an analytics framework? You generally don't have a data strategy, and most organizations, they get spinning wheels where the data implementation people are maybe working on things that they just get off on a tangent and maybe not necessarily focused on how do we get results for the business in the shortest time possible. And also a lot of times without a data strategy in place or some sort of overarching framework, you'll get wastage in terms of multiple people working on the same types of problems in different ways, not sharing their answers with one another. Of course, data silos, all of that is creating operational inefficiencies, but there's also inefficiencies within the work that people are doing. Just generally a lack of focus and organization with respect to all points within the data operations of a business. And so having a framework helps you to pull all of those different pieces together and structure things in a way that you can create a plan for implementing on a use case that is going to generate a maximum bang for your company's buck. So data strategists or chief data officers call this your quick win use case. But essentially it's like, okay, taking all of this madness that's happening in the data operations and finding the shortest path possible to actually, generating improved profits for the business, and then iterating from there, developing, pivoting your data strategy and whatnot to make improvements from there. So the basis of all of that is having a framework in place to develop that strategy. And in terms of, now I'm pulling it all together. So in terms of an Evergreen analytics strategy framework, it's a strategic framework you can use to develop and maintain an Evergreen analytics strategy for your organization. Now, in order to develop one on your own, what you would really need to do is, if you wanted to start this from scratch without having any sort of strategy experience or management experience, and you were just doing this as a solo data practitioner in a small company, you could start by thinking of a 4 or 5 phase process that you could take to develop a strategic plan that ensures your the success of your company's data projects, or even just the projects you're working on. So what I'm talking about, so I'm just going to take this down, thinking back to my days in working in someone else's small business. What this would look like is taking one of your projects and thinking about, if you had to break that project into phases, how would you develop that project from scratch, from start to finish? What would those phases be? How would you structure those phases in order to make sure that the project is most effective? And when I say most effective, I mean that, you know, it satisfies its objectives. If you can manage to tie that to some sort of financial outcome for the business, that's even better. But what is the most fail-proof way of structuring your data projects, the work you do within a data project, to make sure that the work is completed on time, under budget, and that it is exceptional in terms of, like, it works, you know, it's, the quality is what it needs to be, and it satisfies the intended objective. That would be the very minimum of, like, what you would want to take into account when developing a framework like this. And again, if you can tie it to, if you're a consultant, you can usually tie the work you're doing to contract value for your company. So if you're creating, implementing on a project, and you know that they've already sold it for $100,000, and you're doing 75% of the work, then you can easily tie that to, you can tie that process and that, you can tie that to a financial outcome for the business. So that is how you would go about creating a strategic framework that you could then reuse in your own data work. The thing about it is it takes iteration, and so your process is going to shift. You're going to improve things and make it better over time. So you want to, like, just leave room for adjustments, and also it just takes years. So I actually developed my framework out of work I did in authoring. First, I was an author, and I saw how some of the big companies had their framework, their strategy frameworks, and then I started teaching all over the world, and I needed to help business leaders to basically build these projects, data projects, into their business. And so I had to speak to them from the perspective they understand, which is business. And so I adapted my framework over the course of about 10 years until I got it down to really concise 4-phase framework, which I call the STAR framework. And so if you want to bypass all of those years of iteration and all the trial and error that goes into making sure your framework is robust, you can just use mine. And the four phases here are, you know, survey. So STAR is for surveying, T is for taking stock, A is for assess, and R is for recommend. And in terms of surveying the industry, you want to always start out, and data professionals, they don't generally like doing this, but it's super important because your use cases are basically your ingredients. They're basically your evidence of success. So that this is a viable idea. And they're also the basis upon which you have to select an optimal use case given your company's current state. And when I say that, I mean, what do they have in hand in terms of technologies? What skill sets do they have in hand? You want to be able to make the most value from the existing resources the company has, right? So in order to do that, you have to know what's possible for them to pick the optimal use case, which means you need to review use cases, case studies, and also technology specifications of those, so you can look at the use case and say, okay, does that look like a great opportunity for our company? And then we even, like I have a product called Data Use Case Workbox. There's a matrix or a matrix for evaluating use case, because you want to really look at the use case and see, like, okay, does it satisfy? Fundamentally, yes, you want to make profits for the business, but also you need to make sure that the use case you select is in direct support of the business's vision, right? Because just making money is not what the business necessarily, yeah, they want to make money, but if it's like not aligned with what they're actually in business to do, stakeholders are not going to be that interested. So is it in alignment with the business vision? And then you have to look at the use case and say, do we have resources on hand in terms of technologies and people in order to be able to implement this? And then you look at your data resources. Do we have the actual data to be able to implement this? So you want to make the least amount of adjustments possible from your current state and get the biggest bang for your buck. So you have to evaluate competing use cases, essentially. And the first start of this is just to review use cases, get to, do research, create a library. I have a library of use cases in the workbox, but if I had a new data strategy project, I would be out there doing research again to find more cases, success and also failure for specific use cases, because that's your evidence. That's how you pick the use case, and that's the evidence you have to support your selection and stuff. Okay, so the next phase is take stock. Take stock and inventory of your organization. And so you, in the second phase, you have to collect and generate documentation that describes all aspects of your company, not just data operations, because generally the data operations are just only there for one purpose, which is to support the business in the improved business operations. I say that with a bit of a caveat because now, luckily, we have all developed the data industry has developed to the point now where entire lines of business are either data monetization and or selling data services as a line of business. So in those cases, data resources or data skill sets are the actual deliverable that's being sold. But in most data strategy projects, it's going to be how do we use data to get a win for the business. So hopefully you don't have to invest too much time in this, and you can just do a request for information for all of to try and gather information from team members, from managers, from stakeholders about issues in the company, just the status of things. Make sure you really understand what's happening in the various aspects of the business. And then also a really nice, easy tool to get yourself up to speed on issues and also relevant skill sets and data resources is to just create surveys, 1 to 3 surveys, and send it out to different business units, different teams, and collect the information from the team members that way. And then you compile it all together. And then in some cases, once you've collected surveys, you want to do interviews as well. That's always a big part of plan building, strategic plan building. So one next step is assessing. And so the third step here is assessing your organization's current state conditions. So after you have gone thorough information collection phase. Then you put it all together and you just do a document review and start pulling things out, like identifying what are the gaps here, like what are the technology gaps, what are the skill set gaps, what are the risks, not only risks that the business is facing, but also project risks so you got to look at risks like past data projects in the past. Where did they fail? Where did they get caught up? Because all of this stuff needs to be incorporated in your recommendations. And it's not just technology and data resources, it's also people problems. How do we integrate and bring stakeholders into the project so they feel supported, that they know that this project is for them, that it's there to help them get results better, so that they actually can do a top-down approach with their team to get them to use whatever solution you create. Because a big problem with technology, as you probably know, is that you can build it, but you can't necessarily get them to use it. And so if you can get the buy-in of not only the stakeholders, but also all of the managers and people that the work touches, then you're going to have a lot better chance of being able to get people to actually use the solution you built. But that starts before you actually even make recommendations for the plan. That starts with you sitting down in interviews and talking to these managers about what they really need, what would help them the most, what would make their lives easier, and helping them understand that this is actually for them. It's not something that's going to be ratting them out so they have to worry about losing their job. And so all of these things have to be integrated, and you have to take them into account when you are assessing your company's current state. And then based on your findings of the assessment, that's where you go ahead and start evaluating, pitting the different use cases against one another and deciding, okay, which one really looks like the best choice for our company in order to get a quick win. And when I say quick win, I mean, if you can get, I did a survey on this. Most people agreed that if you can get results in terms of something that's protecting profits for the company within 3 months, that's definitely a quick win. At most 6 months. And then from there, you kind of get the trust of stakeholders, of the executives, and you can also then win the trust of the business managers, and then you could work on something bigger, right? But you got to get the quick win out the door. And so a lot of things I see companies doing now is, they say, okay, we've got a data strategy, but then it's something that is like, okay, the plan, this is a plan for 3 or 5 years. That sounds more like I'm a CEO, right? So from a business owner perspective, that sounds more like an investment. That's like, basically, it's not exciting. 3 to 5 years to get anything started. It needs to be something quick and fruitful. So you select a use case and then go into the last phase of the framework, which is recommending a strategy for reaching future state goals. So this is where you would define a strategic plan for implementing upon that data use case, which would be a very detailed technical plan, not, with aspects that speak to business, to corporate executives and stuff like that. But this needs to actually be, this is where you will put your project management hat on and think about, how do we actually implement this? What are the roadblocks? What would we need in place to help team members and get technical about how do we make this happen in short order. Now, you want to rinse, wash, and repeat every 18 months just to make sure that your strategy is, is timely, is taking into account changes in market condition. You and I, we all know how fast the data industry changes. So we have to kind of try and keep up the best we can. And this is the end of my talk. I did want to introduce to you that this is kind of the tip of the iceberg in terms of data strategy. And so if you don't want to take the time to build your own framework and you want me to do all the heavy lifting for you, we have data strategy action plan, which is, it uses the STAR framework, but it comes with 44 sequential steps that you would want to take within that framework in order to build a fail-proof data strategy plan for your company. But it's essentially a checklist and collaborative Trello board planner for data professionals who want to get unstuck and up-leveled into their next promotion by delivering a fail-proof data strategy plan for their company. And then, there's a bunch of bonuses, and inside there, how I have it set up, I'll tell you the secret sauce. Probably I shouldn't do that, but the secret sauce from a business perspective is, if you go in and you purchase that, there's an option to get the case collection and the use case evaluation tool. And then after that, there's an option to get all of my templates for building and calculators and evaluation tool sets for actually building strategic plans. That's like the upsell. And then, but it's all super affordable. And that is my little pitch that I had for you at the end of this. And then now I am all yours. You can find it at the link here. I think Sadie doesn't mind sharing it with you. Here, I can do that, I guess. I'll share it with you in chat, and then we'll just go ahead and do Q&A. I'm all yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lillian. So if everybody wants to, either you can unmute your mic or add questions to the chat, and Lillian will answer those and also share the link.
Yeah, I'm trying to
Hi,
pull
I have
that
a question.
Hey, hi, just one second.
Sure.
Okay, so where's the chat? Oh, I'll put a link in the chat if you want to check it out. No pressure though. Okay, so hello. Sandra, was it you? Oh, no, Renita. Okay.
Hi, this is Renita. So here's my question. I'm wondering, I know a lot of teams probably have some data project trauma, right? Projects that they planned and just, did not go right. I think that 3-month time frame really helps in terms of, setting our sights on something. But do you have any other advice for if we're working with teams that have kind of been there, done that in terms of the rah-rah about we're going to do a new data product, and then things like nothing happens, and there's a lot of, emotions behind that you have to kind of deal with when you're doing a new project?
So you're saying that your team members are basically feeling let down, like they've gone through this before and it didn't have any impact?
Yeah, I mean, they're kind of feeling like, every couple of years we have some new data initiative that doesn't quite work out like how we expect it to. And so now they're maybe doubting their abilities, doubting the abilities of the team to kind of, or the leadership. So I'm just curious about your experiences with, kind of dealing with low morale from past failed projects.
I think this really comes in, what this really requires is leadership. So showing up for your team, and because that's a valid point. If they did all this work in the past and it didn't work out, then working together to actually pinpoint the source of the problem and acknowledge that, even if you have to take it on the chin or whatever and say, I didn't lead this, to the best way possible because I'm growing just like you're growing. And this is how we are we are changing things. And, this is the plan I have in place now to make sure that doesn't happen again. I think that just calling things, being open and everyone sharing their feelings about things is going to do a lot to kind of get rid of that talk that's happening, behind the scenes and stuff like that morale problem. But then another thing that really will help with, because you want, yes, you want your data people to see how the work they're doing is actually making an impact on the world, of course. But, stuff happens, and it's not all about, if you can somehow make it not all about the business, but also how their work is the work they're doing for the business. What is their actual vision? What is their passion? What do they want out of their life? And how does the work that they're doing today for the business actually further that? Actually, so get them excited from a perspective of like, how is the work they're doing going to getting them closer to where they really want to be in their career and what's meaningful to them. So that takes a little, that takes interpersonal skills and honest discussions, but all of those type of things are going to open up being vulnerable with them and everyone just opening up about what they really want and how the work they're doing is supporting that. It's gonna help them feel heard. It's gonna help them feel like their work matters, even if the project doesn't go through the way you want it to. So I think all of those things would be very helpful. Also, if you can do anything to, like, okay, yeah, of course, like incentive bonuses or any sort of thing that's going to be, certifications or any sort of like accolade or external meriting thing is going to, of course, help people feel a little better. But that stuff is like, that's not what we really want in life, I don't think. None of us want another certification necessarily. We actually want, I think that fundamentally, if you get all the money you want, you're going to come down and what you're really going to want is you're going to want to make a positive impact on the lives of other people or on the world, depending on what your passion is. So if you can get them in touch, yeah, you could give them the extra stuff, but that may or may not help. If you can get them in touch with, their inner drivers, that is probably going to do more for you.
Thank you.
I have a question, sir.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so
What's your name? Sorry.
Debbie.
Okay.
You see Debbie right there. Okay. Can you recommend like a process to how to handle or maybe how to execute like a data cleanup process? Let me give you a specific example. I'm working on on a product or project where I have to do a cleanup. So we're cleaning up like a database, right? But we have lots of users across the organization on using this database for reports, for different kinds of personal, we call it pipeline views and things like that. But now, because we have that database is so congested right now that we are seeing a lot of slowness and it's impacting the performance of the system. So right now we need to do a cleanup. I'm trying to initiate a process where we have other people having personal things around to have them do the cleanup by themselves. And then we can execute like a company-wide cleanup to remove some of the fields that they're not using in that database. So what are the process or the steps you would use to tackle or an initiative like that?
I would use the exact process that I laid out for you here. I would use that same process. You need to go through and see all of the different aspects of the business and the workers that the project actually touches, how it's going to impact them, do a thorough evaluation of the organization, and also just every aspect of it, assess it, and then formulate a plan for how to actually implement this in the phases of implementation where it's going to be, and also risk. You need to make sure that for data cleanup, you need to make sure that you've taken into account any risks in terms of user access to the data and training them up on how to get you know what I'm saying? Just, you have to make a plan and then roll it out in phases. But at least if you have, one of the benefits of having the plan is that you're going to have a communication tool to help them understand your expectations and how this is going to go off as seamlessly as possible. The other thing is you actually have a plan to basically decrease most of the risk involved in implementing something like this.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
I have a question. Sorry, I'm Dana from Melbourne.
Hi, Dana.
Hey, about competing data priorities. I've recently started a contract in government, and I'm working on developing a visualization tool, which will potentially gain momentum and increase funding for this particular unit. But there's also a transformation project happening at the same time, which has all the other data analysts as kind of a key priority. And so negotiating people to help me with this project is quite difficult. How would you go about negotiating or trying to get people's interest in the project? I guess it's a question about buy-in.
Yeah, but yes, it is, but they're actually not buying into your project though, right? Like what you're doing doesn't really help them.
Exactly, but it'll help kind of the wider organization, because the idea is that this visualization project will potentially increase funding availability to this government agency.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. And so I would say take two approaches with this. So I would speak with, I would try top down a little bit, maybe speak with the boss of the boss of the boss, and discuss with them, the potential for this project and how it could really help the agency at large, and tell them about your issues to see if they could allocate some help from, they could allocate someone just to help you with what you need. So that's one way of going about it. You might need to talk to your boss. It's kind of there. You want to work, you want to like think about politics, right? Because you don't want to like go to like your manager's peer and go straight up to them, right? So you have to like go through the chain of like all that. But the other thing is, I think this a lot comes down to relationships inside the company and just developing friendships with these people. Not for the purpose of them helping you on your project, but just for the purpose of you guys are having similar passions and, wanting to support one another and just developing friendships. Maybe go to lunch with some of the people, just maybe go to, invite them to a local presentation or meetup, or send them an invitation to the next Women in Data, webinar, just anything to like help them and also just to make friends with them. And once you've developed that friendship, you can kind of talk to them and just be like, ask them for help directly or ask them what they would do in your situation. And that will probably go a long way. That will probably be a lot more effective than putting yourself out there talking to your boss's boss.
Thanks.
So I would talk to your boss about it and ask them if they can talk to someone higher up, and then also start making friends.
Great. Well, I think people are getting a little bit quiet. Lillian, if anyone is interested, what's the best way to connect with you? I know you shared the link for the next kind of strategy workshop in the chat, correct?
Yeah, that is my product data strategy action plan. Mostly available through so my main social channel is really YouTube. And we're putting out 3 videos per week at this point. And then also if you want to connect on LinkedIn, that would be amazing. I'm always in YouTube, like responding to comments and making conversation, because that's my main priority right now in our business. But I also am over in LinkedIn. And again, my name is Lillian Pierson. If you just search for that, it'll come up in both places.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming and speaking with us. This was very insightful, and it's just such a pleasure to have you here one-on-one.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I got a lot of great things to take away from it. So definitely stay in touch, and we look forward to talking to you all again soon. Thanks, everybody.